Y'all are on the East Van Dan Shit Show.
Yeah, it's one of those mornings.
It's all good.
So you're from Victoria. What were your high school days like?
What were my high school days like? Well, I lived in the parking lot. I didn't really go to class ever, like at all. Um, yeah, it was a lot of partying. I think I went to a lot of raves in those days. It was a lot of raving. Like my high school days were like not very high school because I would go to school so that I didn't get in trouble from my parents, but then I would just hang out in the parking lot with my friends. My friends were all like this, like the skater kids. There was two parking lots in my school. There was like the skid lot. They called us the skid lot. And then the other parking lot was like the preppy kids, and we called them the baiters. It was the baiter lot, and we were enemies. But I don't know. Like I always kind of got along with everybody a little bit, but sometimes my friends would like fight them and stuff. There was a lot of fights in my high school. But like, yeah, I don't know, man. I went to some classes, like I was on the school paper for some reason. And I almost had to pay. It was back in the day. It was like in the, it was the 90s. So it was when you sold joints, like drug dealers sold, they would buy like a big bag of weed and sell and then roll it up and sell it. And so you could buy joints, and the big deal was getting 5 for 20. You would get 5 joints for $20. And so we named the paper 5 for 20. And then
Interesting.
yeah, but then the drama teacher was a fucking weed smoker. So he knew what it meant, and then we got it kiboshed. He kiboshed it.
Oh shit. Yeah,
So I did that. I went to drama class. I went to gym class, and that was kind of it. I didn't really do anything else. I like smoked a lot of weed in the parking lot, and sometimes one of my friends sold acid and like MDMA and stuff. So I would test out his acid whenever he got it. So I was on acid a lot at school. Yeah, definitely went to class like high if I was there, like as a bit. It's like I'm gonna go to class, but it's because I'm on acid.
Yeah, I had my high school days were similar too. Like I would like go to like the first block and then skip the last three like every day and just go
Yeah.
and like smoke weed or whatever. But I would go to like the local dealer and buy like 4 caps of V, and then you get a fifth one for free. So for
Yeah.
20 bucks you get 5 caps.
5 for 20, baby.
Yeah, you take them and then go trip out in a park for the rest of the day.
Dude, E was $5 for
Yeah,
you guys.
yeah.
What year was this?
Fuck. Okay, so 31. So I would have been 17, 16. No, I would have been 15. So that was 16 years ago. So what year would have that be?
Don't make me do math. Get out of here.
I know, right?
2014, 2009. I want to
Yeah,
say. I might be
yeah.
wrong. Yeah, because dude, they were selling E. It wasn't MDMA then; it was E.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like I think it was like $20 for one capsule or something when I was that same age.
This he was pretty gross as I
I
can
remember it getting
remember.
no, but I remember it getting way cheaper. And then after like years later, when I didn't really do it anymore, and being like, man, this shit was so expensive when I was a kid. It was like 20, yeah, it was like $20. And then later it was cheaper. Yeah, but that was me with acid. I was like, oh, when I discovered acid, I was like, oh, I could like spend $5 on a joint, or I could spend $5 on acid and be high all day. Like what,
Yeah, yeah.
So
Obviously, what is the better deal here?
yeah, what's the better deal? And I can see God. Sign me up, brother. We did a lot of mushrooms and stuff too. So I got kicked out of that school because I just never went. And then I went to another school. I went to Vic High, Victoria High School, and I never really went there either. And then I remember one time at that school, my sister was an EA, and so she worked at the school and she was my EA in my class. And no one knew that she was my sister. And one day she told me to do something and I told her to fuck off. And the whole class like stopped and looked. We're like, oh shit. And then we had to be like, oh, we're brother and sister. And then it was like, oh, it's like, it was a secret. I just like reflexed, was like, fuck off, like shut the fuck up or something. No. I remember one time in social studies class in grade 11, it was I think my fourth time doing grade 11. I was 19. Like there was a bar across the street from the high school called the Georgian Dragon. And I used to go there and have beers at lunch because I was 19 and I was in grade 11. And I remember we were going on a field trip and the teacher was handing out permission slips for people to take home for their parents to sign to go on this field trip. And she gave me mine and in front of the whole class was like, you can just sign your own and hand it back. And I was like, cool. Super cool. And then yes, I dropped out of that school and then I ended up going to like the delinquent school for continuing education at SJ Willis. And then I never ended up doing that. I actually never finished high school. I never ended up finishing it.
Yeah,
I didn't get my life together until I was 36. So
I pretty much lied my way through high school.
nice.
Yeah,
right. I think a lot of people did.
Yeah, they were like, if you do this X amount of work, you can leave. Because at that point, I only went to like one block a day, and then they're trying to figure out because I would just get like notes written and just fucking handed in. Oh, he was sick or like whatever, and they just couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, school was not for me. It just wasn't. It didn't like. I wasn't like stupid. I just didn't want to go. I was very busy partying.
Yeah, me too. Big time.
Yeah. So, but it all worked out in the end. So, I ended up working at Shoppers Drug Mart for 18 years. I worked there, but I ended up being like a pharmacy tech. So I had like a decent job. And then I think I lied to them about finishing high school and they just never checked. And then I ended up working in advertising and now I'm a stand-up comic. So I've fallen ass backwards into a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I hear you. So like when did you realize like you wanted to do like comedy? Like who were like your influences?
Well, like I didn't start. I started doing comedy like in a different way before I started stand up. Like I started writing jokes on Twitter in like 2009, I think, and I was when I was working at Shoppers and like my account blew up, and I got like offered all these writing jobs, little bits here and there, and like wrote lists like everyone did on Twitter. Like I wrote lists for like Playboy and stuff like that, and then I ended up getting a little cartoon short on a TV show called Night Sweats on Cartoon Network that was like a collection of cartoon shorts called Giraffe Cops by these guys, Chris Nielsen and Bart Batchelor, who are Vancouver writers, super funny dudes. And one thing, it just kept leading to another. And then I ended up becoming a freelance copywriter in advertising, worked with a guy out of a New York agency named Jeff Lowe, and did like a bunch of that. So I just was around the like periphery of stand up, but had never done it. But I had written, by the time I first did stand up, I had literally written 20,000 plus jokes on Twitter. So I had like a ton of stuff that I was like, I think this would work as stand up if I expanded it or whatever. And so I always kind of wanted to do it. A lot of people told me I should do it, like all my friends and stuff, but I was kind of a mess because I don't know, like if you do like an intro or anything, but like I'm sober, like I'm 7.5 years.
I'm almost a year and a half. So.
Nice, man. Congrats. Yeah. So I was a drug addict. I was a cocaine addict and
I loved cocaine.
An alcoholic. through that whole time I was battling addiction and not really knowing I was battling addiction. Like because I was very social and all my friends kind of partied like I did. And it wasn't really until the last couple of years that things got away from me and I isolated and really set my life on fire, made life really hard for the people around me. But like leading up, like during that whole time, I think I've been doing comedy for like 12 years now. So 44, so 34, so yeah, 32 I think I started. And um yeah, there's a couple guys in town here who I knew were in comedy. Chris Vickers, who was I think an improv comic, and then another stand-up comic named Ryan Bangma, and they ran this show called um Come and Play with Ryan and Chris, and it was like a variety show, like it was a weird comedy show with Paul Ops, who's also like an alt comic here in Vic, who's super funny. And Ryan sometimes does comedy, but yeah, Chris doesn't do it anymore. But they like Chris and I were buddies from partying. We just like partied together, and I kind of looked up to him, and I used to see him around all the time, and I would always be like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do stand-up comedy, but I'd be high, and he'd be like, okay, like it must have been like, yeah, like again, you're telling me about this, but not doing anything about it. And
Yeah,
then,
sure. That's what you said fucking
yeah,
last
right.
week.
And then one time, I was working at Shoppers. I was on my break. I ran into Chris on the street, and he said, "Hey, we're doing Come and Play." He's like, "Would you do stand-up comedy for your first time on our show? Our theme is first times." And I was like, "Yes." I just said yes, and then I like went inside work, and I didn't even know like the language, right? And I texted him, and I'm like, "How long do I like?" You know, I normally now I'd be like, how much time do you want me to do? You know, but then I didn't even know how to say that. I was like, how long do I do jokes for or whatever? I don't know what I said, but he was like 15 minutes. And I was like, okay. I didn't know that was not a normal amount of time to do stand-up comedy for your first time. So I just said yes. And then during that time, in between when I did that, when I said yes to that, there was another guy in Victoria named Kyle McDowell who was um another Twitter guy who had like a pretty big Twitter profile. Who's very funny on Twitter, and he changed his Facebook profile picture to him doing stand-up comedy, which is what everybody does when they first start doing comedy. It's super cringe. And I saw it and I was like, oh man, I'm like, he did it, now I gotta do it. So I messaged him like, where did you do that? And he was like, I did it at this place called Ratfish, which is in Victoria. There's a club called Hecklers that is a great club. It's one of the best clubs in Canada. And above it, there used to be this small room that was like kind of looked like Hecklers, but a smaller version in the lobby of the Ramada Inn on the Gorge. And that's where a lot of people started. Anyone in Victoria kind of started there, like Miles Anderson, who's been on Debaters a ton now. He started there. Darcy Collins, Steve McMath, and Chelsea Liu, who neither of them do comedy anymore, but were both super funny. Shane Priestley, Evan Mumford, it's tons of people. You know, Wes Borg was around a lot. Sean Proudlove, who's also I think retired now, like a bus driver now. But Katie Ellen Humphreys, I think, started there.
Oh yeah, sweet. I know her.
Yeah, like a ton of people started there. And so I went with him, and I wrote 3 minutes of stand up because that's how long the sets were. And I just wrote three jokes that were like a minute long each. And I went and I did it, and it went good. It was good. It went good. And then the second time I did it was the 15 minutes. And I have a video of it. And like the jokes were there because I'd already been writing for like 10 years, but I didn't like know how to hold the mic. Like I'm whipping it all around, and I'm very new. I've got that new guy energy where you're like, I am reading jokes to you. I am trying to make it seem like I'm not and you know what I mean? And it's super cringe to watch. It's awful. It's so bad. But here's a funny thing. Two things. One thing is the third time I did stand-up comedy was at a place called Northern Quarter, and yeah, Ryan Bangma asked me to come do it last minute, and I said yes. I invited my parents because the first two went well, and so like it was bad, but like it was fine, you know. And the time I was like, oh, I'm so good at this. I was not, but I told my parents to come, and I bombed so bad. I just absolutely ate a dick. And then after the show, Ryan paid everybody in cash. We were all standing in a circle, all the comics. He paid everybody, but he didn't pay me. And I thought that comedy worked like if you didn't do good, you just didn't get paid. And so I was like, well, fair enough. Yeah, I was not good tonight. So, and then the other thing is I had an impromptu coffee with Chris Vickers, the guy who booked me for that 15-minute show, like last year. And I was like, hey man, I'm like, did you guys know that you were asking me to do 15 minutes? Because that's crazy. And he was like, oh yeah. He was like, it was a prank. We were trying to take you down a peg. Because I was like totally super full of myself because I had all my like little Twitter followers and like, knew all these fucking famous people from Twitter and shit. So I was like way up my own ass and a cokehead and drunk and like just a mess of a person, just completely ego driven. Like I was really just doing stand-up comedy so I could tell people that I was a comic. Really, I wasn't really, there were no goals, there was no like me trying to get better or anything. I was not a like evil bad person or anything, but just messy, like a lost soul.
Yeah, like a lost boy like me.
Yeah, man. Just trying to get people to like me, like that's the through line through my whole life, that part I've been trying to undo for the last especially 4 years, and I've come a long way. But yeah, man, so that was kind of that's sort of how I got into comedy. And then I did it here and there. Actually, I started there's a nightclub in Victoria called Upstairs Cabaret, and my roommate at the time was the GM at the bar downstairs, Darcy's, and they asked me to put on a comedy contest at the club. And so I was like, yeah, totally. And I'd done comedy like 5 or 6 times, I don't know, maybe a little more, but not much. And I put on this contest called Chuckle Mania, and we put like probably 300 people in that club for the contest, and I hosted it. And man, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I got ripped off. They only paid me $300 for producing the show and hosting it, and with 300 people at like a $15 ticket, like I didn't know. And the owner of the club at Heckler's made this big post in the forum being like, this, don't go do comedy shows where you're getting ripped off. I forget, but like just calling me out. And I messaged him and like, take this fucking post down. I don't know what you think. So me and him started our relationship on very bad terms. And now fast forward 12 years later, he's my business partner and I'm the booker at Heckler's. But it was started off very rocky. So we did that. And I didn't realize that I was taking advantage of comics because they're packing that room and only paying like $500 to the winner. So I just had no idea. And it's funny now because I see like people start shows, especially on the island here, and just doing stuff that is totally unhinged and not charging the right amount, not paying and not booking the right people, calling it a pro show, and they got open micers closing and stuff, and it just like hurts the community. Like it's not good.
Yeah, for sure.
It's strange, right? Because comedy is not like music, where like if you go to a bad music show, you're like, oh, that band sucked. But for some reason, when people go to comedy and they see a bad comedy show, they're like, oh, comedy sucks, and then they don't go. So you can burn venues, you can burn whole cities. So I see people making similar mistakes that I did, but when I try to like say something about it, it's only because I'm like, hey man, I did that, don't do that, like, I want to help.
I think there is a higher expectation for comedy than there is music.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. And especially because it's so intimate, you know what I mean? And like so yeah, I always tell people, like, if you're new and you're listening to this and you're thinking about putting on shows, run an open mic first. Like learn how to produce a show the same way you would go and learn, how to do comedy at an open mic. Same thing. Like put on an open mic first, learn it, because there's so many pitfalls in this business that can make people hate you. And I really try not to, like, when somebody's new doing something crazy, try not to hate them and be like, oh, they just don't know. Because I didn't know. I have made tons of mistakes. I still make mistakes. People make mistakes. It's okay.
Yeah,
so
it's called life.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, man, that was kind of my foray into comedy. Who my influences, I guess, like, if we're talking about when I was a kid, I really loved like Steve Martin and like just movies. I didn't really watch like stand up growing up that much. I really loved Robin Williams though. I know he's a nightmare person and should be in jail, but my parents had like Bill Cosby records, and I liked those a lot when I was a little kid. And then later, I really liked Jim Jeffries was somebody who really I really liked. Back in like I don't know, but like the Family Guy days, like I still think he's like one of the best storytellers out there. But I really liked him. Dave Chappelle, um, Live at the Fillmore was a big one for me. Stephen Wright was probably the first.
The king of the one-liners.
Oh man, it was probably the first guy like that I kind of started to understand stand up, and I really liked him. I saw him live. He was the first live comedy show I ever saw, and it was amazing. But like, really, it's just for funny stuff. It's like, yeah, Chevy Chase, Steve Martin, like Three Amigos. When I was little, I watched that movie like 1,000 times. And like Monty Python, Faulty Towers, that kind of stuff. I really like that. So yeah, man. Yeah, just rattle off of like, who are your favorites? I don't know. Bill Cosby, Louis C.K., Chris D'Elia. Not really. So yeah, I don't know, man. Though I guess those people would be my influences. For me, it's more like when I first started comedy, just around town. Like the people I looked up to were like Miles Anderson, Hanok Maressa, Shane Priestley, Evan Mumford, Chelsea Liu, especially I thought was like really, really good. Like Steve McMath, Darcy Collins, like those guys were there when I got there, and I really looked up to those people and really wanted their validation. I really wanted them. I really wanted to like be a comic, like I viewed them, and yeah. So the people who were really mostly influential on me were like the local comics when I started. I would say more so than like celebrity comics. Like I liked comedy and stuff, but none of those things like made me like want to do comedy. It wasn't until I like was around in an actual scene and kind of saw what it was like that I was more influenced and inspired to do comedy. The other stuff I just like liked it, but I didn't like watch Dave Chappelle and be like, oh my god, I gotta get on stage. Like I didn't really think that. There was a moment right before I tried it too that I do think had an impact. Was I went to a comedy show at the Comedy Mix in Vancouver, which no longer exists. Great club. Never got to do it. It was before my time, but I saw Ivan Decker
Oh yeah. Sweet.
and Dino Archie on the same show, and I remember being like, these guys are so natural. Like they were so like, I'm like, they're just getting up there and saying stuff, not knowing that like those are bits that have been worked like for years. I didn't understand that. So I'm like, that was a moment. I feel like that actually was the first moment where I was like, I got to get up there. I could do that. I could do what they're doing, and I totally, I could not, because I just didn't understand the mechanics of it. But yeah, Ivan is like a cool little through line for me because I saw him at that show, and then he still is like one of my favorite comics. If you ask me who my favorite comics are, Ivan's definitely top 5. Man, he's so good. And I just saw him like 2 weeks ago at Heckler's. It just blows the doors off place. It's just so unbelievable. He's got 5 minutes on popcorn that's like better than anything I've ever written. Guy's unreal. But so I saw him at that show, and then I started comedy, and fast forward like a couple years in, he was performing at the Queens on one of Peter Hudson's shows, and I got to do a guest spot on the show, and I got to tell him that little story. I'm like, I saw you at the Mix, and you inspired me to do stand-up comedy, blah blah blah. And he was like, oh, that's cool. And then I didn't really. I was just honored to be there, And then and then like fast forward, I don't know, 6 months, a year, whatever. I was in Vancouver at the Kino, which was also an incredible venue that no longer exists, that I never got to do either. It was just before my time. And Ivan walked up, and I was standing outside, and Ivan walked up, and I was like, hey man. And he remembered my name. He was like, Dan, hey, how's it going? And I was like, wow. I just had this moment. I'm like, Ivan Decker knows who I am. That's so cool. And then I got to know him more. I ended up working with him a bunch more times. I opened for him in a theater in Ladner one time, and there was this moment where I like was doing my closing joke, and I it was going really good. And I said the line, and then there's a pause, and then I say the last line in this closing joke. And I looked over, and Ivan was laughing like super hard at what I was saying. And I was like, oh, it was like a real moment. And then fast forward to like a couple of years after that, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm coming to LA. And he's like, oh, man, he's like, I'd pick you up at the airport, but I'm leaving. And I'm like, Jack wants to pick me up at the airport. Like, it was just really cool. And now we're like just friends. Now he's just like a friend. Like a good buddy, and I love him, and like he's really special to me. But like, it's different right now. It's not. I'm not like, oh, like, you know, I'm in your presence now, where I feel like we're pals. And I think what's really cool about stand up is that once you start doing it and you're around a bunch, you can be like very amateur and get to meet and be on shows with people like your heroes and look up to them, and they're nice to you. And there's like a blurred line between um meeting your heroes in stand-up comedy, which I don't know if it's like that in other art forms because I'm not in them, but I really love that about stand-up, that it's meeting people you look up to is like really obtainable in this industry.
Yeah. Um, so you started stand-up before you got sober.
Yes,
So like when you got sober, was that like was it harder for you to perform?
um no uh no, like it was so different. um like when I was sober, or when before I was doing it, I was doing it because I wanted to tell everyone I was a comic. And when I stopped doing it, when I like just before I got sober, because my life was completely on fire. And then I came back to it about I want to say 3 months, 6 months into sobriety. And I remember being like, I need something to do at night because I can't go to the bar and just drink anymore. And I was like, maybe I should try stand-up comedy. And I went back and tried it again, and it felt different. It was from the very first time that I did it sober, I was like, oh, I actually like this. It was one of the first things I figured out that I actually liked, because before I got sober, I didn't know what I even liked. I didn't even know who I was as a person. I was very reactionary. I was just doing stuff. You know what I mean? Like if you asked me what I was into, I would have said like patios and sports. I don't know. Like I didn't have, I had all these things set up that were like my identity, but I didn't truly know what I enjoyed. I don't think so. Stand up was like probably the first thing that I was like, oh man, I just like this. I like doing this. And so once that was the driving force, it changed everything. It made me want to get better at it. It made me take also doing like 12 steps has really helped me to take feedback and not take things so personally. That's also been an onward going journey. But yeah, just really changed it. So it wasn't so much that it was harder or not as hard. It was just totally different, a completely different thing. And that eventually led to like, now when I do comedy, I want to be connected to the audience. It's
Yeah, for sure. When you're loaded, you're not fucking connected to anything.
To anything at all. And now, like, I'll say that to new comics too, is like, try to connect with them. Don't so much worry about nailing every word, because then it feels like you're reciting a script. Whereas if I go out there and I connect and I look and make eye contact with people in the audience, and I'm like in the moment and talking and stuff, it's like a totally different thing, and it's fun. I'm having fun, so they have fun. And then, like, if I blow a joke, say another one. Just make fun of myself for blowing a joke. You know what I mean? Like it's just like a different thing. So yeah, it changed from wanting to convince everyone I was a comic to like just doing a thing I enjoyed, which I had never done before. I'd never got to experience just doing something because I liked it. It was always kind of like watching my own life through other people's eyes. Like I was like a passenger in my own life. This was like a foray into like being an active participant in my own life. And that is like such a gift of recovery. Probably the biggest gift of all.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So you got any gigs coming up?
Yeah, when does this come out?
Oh, let's see, I'm gonna say Saturday.
Yeah, so I have gigs coming up. I'm in Edmonton this weekend, but my show's on Friday, so I don't know why I'm saying that. And then back in Victoria, I have the Mint on Wednesday, the 9th. And then I have a show at Front Runners.
Where's that?
On the 10th. It's a running store, like where they sell running shoes. And it's my friend who's a Ironman athlete who works there. His name's Batu. He put it on. And so people are signing up to run 5K with me, and then we do a comedy show at the place afterwards, and it's I think almost sold out. So if you're getting this and it's not sold out, come run a little bit and then come watch the show. And then
how far is the run?
With 5K.
Okay, cool.
And then the next night I'm at the Calgary Stampede in the Hall of Wonders on Friday night at 8:00, I think, with Derek Sagan, Erica Sigurdsson, and Pete Zedlacker. And then I fly right back to Victoria on Saturday on the 12th, and I'm headlining Hecklers on July 12th. So if you're in Victoria, come out to that. And then July 25th, I'm hosting a show for Emily Woods at Routine Coffee. They have a it's a new coffee shop on Fort Street, little walk-up place, but they have a cool ass like courtyard in the back that's outdoor, and we've started doing shows there. So it's really fun. Yeah.
Nice.
And I'm launching that today. So
nice. Sweet.
Yeah,
awesome,
dude.
man. Well, I think we covered a lot.
Yeah.
I have to fucking figure out my day now.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for doing the show, man. And it was awesome talking to you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Sorry I talked nonstop for the entire time.
No, I love
it. I guess that's the point.
Yeah.
All right, cool, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Have fun in Van. I'll see you later.
Yeah, later, man.